November, one of my favorite months of the year, and railfanning is still on the rise for me. Welcome back to the Sunshine State Rails. Here is our compilation of railfanning videos that I got in the month of, you guessed it, November. There's no real story to these railfanning outings, just some fun facts along the way. So the first outing of this month would be on November 7th. We had made our way out to the Palmetto subdivision on an early Saturday afternoon to catch 0750 and chase him around for the remainder of the day. Here he is now, passing the north end of the town of Ruskin. In about a half mile, he'll cross the Little Manatee River with one engine and 5 cars bound for various customers. Here we are now at Gulf City Road, just across the Little Manatee River. After we crossed it, we realized that the bridge was still open and the train would have to wait for a bridge tender to arrive to close it. Yes, this bridge should have been converted to remote control by now, but for whatever reason it's still manual. But it gave us some time to play with while we waited on the train, and I noticed something that is kind of a heartbreaker for this area. 2 brand new looking aluminum mast signals thrown into a field just across the tracks. As soon as I saw these, I knew that these were soon to replace one of either 2 sets of signals, either the 2 APP warning searchlights or the signals which govern the bridge itself. And after looking at the signal layout, yellow on the top, red on the bottom, I realized that these, when they do go up, will replace these sawed-off signals which govern the bridge itself. I'm not sure if there's any of these types of signals left governing trains and revenue service in this state right now, so if you have any plans to come down this way, you may want to come down here as soon as you can and shoot these signals, because I'm not sure how quick they have plans to get these up, but when they do, those signals will be gone. These signals are set up exactly like the ones which are in place now. They're just brand new. And just as a side note, if you do come out here and see these signals still laying here, I wouldn't recommend trying to walk through this field because there are sandspur plants everywhere. I spent a good 5 minutes of my wait just peeling them off my socks. That's why I got the drone up and took it over there. I wasn't about to hike through that minefield again. But enough tear shed, let's get back to work. 750 had just gotten clearance across the river and was now climbing out of the lowlands, continuing his journey south. Those 3 leading hopper cars, as well as one of those tank cars, would be bound for customers on this track in the foreground, and the other tank car would be bound for a customer right here. Here we are at milepost AZA 910.1. This is the milepost of the switch that this train got permission to handle in his EC1, which he received from the dispatcher earlier today. The Palmetto sub south of the Alafia River is all dark territory, so from there south, trains must be given permission to use certain lengths of the track via the dispatcher, as well as switches. And that's what you'll hear within his EC1 message. Here he would be stopping his train to drop one of those tank cars into the Trieste AG group, which resides just across US 41, about a quarter mile to our east. About an hour passes before the train re-emerges from the depths of the forest, with one less car than he had before. In this train-specific EC1 this morning, he got permission to use the track all the way to Bradenton. He also got permission on another switch, 914.6, which is the switch for the Conrad-Yelvington spur. So he would now continue south to switch that spot. The train now creeps into downtown Palmetto, where their final switch resides, and as for us, we're standing right on the spot where the mighty Seaboard Airline once crossed this still active main line right here, headed into downtown Palmetto. One of the smash boards is still there on the other side of the tracks, but the tracks themselves were pulled up just after 2004.
Got the next flag, it's clear, second. Keep on shoving, give me about 3 covered up. Crossing flag clear, you're still on the ground, shove your way 366.
They would spend about 45 minutes down on the spur, and would eventually come back out with 11 empty rock hoppers added to the consist. They got permission all the way into Bradenton because after picking up these empty cars, they would have to run around their train to put the engine back on the front for the return trip to Tampa. And the only way to do that here would be to cross the Big Manatee River and use the siding tracks in Bradenton near the Tropicana plant to do so. Leapfrogging him into Bradenton, here he now is crossing the giant railroad crossing, which is where the major highways US 301 and 41 merge together. It's not common to catch things other than the Tropicana juice consists crossing this road, but here we are. Also, notice another little thing. The EOT device is not on the end of the train, but is rather stuck right in between the locomotive and the very first car of the train. Why is that? Well, it's a simple measure of efficiency. Since they are just about to run around their train here, that will soon be the end of the train, so to keep from having the conductor walk to the end of the train again after they've run around, they just stuck it there so they could leave it and run around the train to where that would then be the end of the train when heading back north. 750 heads onto the siding track to then use the main to run around his train. They could have done this either way, however they are going on to the siding track. That could have been done on purpose, or that could have just been the way that the previous Tropicana Juice Train crew had left the switch when they departed this morning. There were some heavy storms building to our east moving our way, but we stuck it out for one last shot. We moved just around the corner to catch 0750 departing Bradenton, and after getting permission to cross the Big Manatee once again, They would be on their way in no time, headed back north where they will stop at Port Manatee one more time to drop off those other 3 miscellaneous cars in the middle of the train. That would be all for this little chase. We had no more than 3 minutes to get back to the car before the clouds opened up and drenched the whole area. But the following day on November 8th, we would make a trip up to Central Florida to see what else we could find. First action of the morning we would find out at Lakeland. 0738, a daily local from Winston out to the Auburndale and Davenport area, had a nice long consist of rock bound for Davenport and other distributors of rock out there, and 3 covered hoppers bound for an industry somewhere around Auburndale. A nice classic Yellow-Nose 2 paint duo on this one today. An approach limited on the mast at Winston Pass gave a signal to 0719 to head east out to Eton Park and an industrial park which resides at the very end of the CH Spur. This specific local has always mystified me. They have one specific local for 1 or 2 customers, and he's never any more than 4 or 5 cars. He's usually no more than 1 or 2 like today. And the fact that they've designated an entire crew for that job has been a bit crazy to me. But can't complain, it's another train after all. Driving west on US 92, we find a train parked out on the main line. It was 0708 switching some industries off of Park Road just east of downtown Plant City. This local has been a bit off and on with its schedule. The days that it's supposed to run, it hasn't been running lately. But today we got lucky and found it running. He got permission from the dispatcher to head down and work the potato house, which is in between Cherry and Mango sidings. Those 2 big white box cars called reefers at the beginning of this train are the cars bound for that specific industry. In about an hour, we would find ourselves back out at Lakeland Junction. Thanks to one of our Facebook groups, we got a heads up on a train that I am really glad that we heard about. By this point, Dalton had come out to meet up with us. Off to the left is the field where the old Lakeland Yard once stood, where now, as you've probably heard from me a million times, they are now building the new Bonnet Springs Park, which is soon to be open at some point. The estimations have changed in recent weeks, so I can't give a reasonable estimate yet. A little fun fact though, in this specific frame here, those 2 yellow half poles at the very bottom right of the screen along with that brick path was once a road entrance to the old Lakeland Yard. And after all these years of it being gone, the old road and chains are still here. Old Lakeland Yard was once a huge railroad hub for this area, before CSX moved all of those operations to Winston just west of town. Coming down from the north within minutes of us arriving was Q177, nightly intermodal from Jacksonville to the Winter Haven Intermodal Logistics Center. This train I've only caught twice, doesn't usually run through this area until the hours of 2 to 4 a.m. However, logistics issues or just bad luck pushed this train over 12 hours behind what it should have been running at. But either way, it was awesome to see, since you really can't catch intermodals like this through Lakeland in daylight anymore.
Lakeland Junction.
By this point in the day, Max had also come out to join the party, to where we all moved over to the old abandoned Amtrak station near downtown Lakeland. 0719, the local which we caught this morning, had finished up his work and was now returning to Winston. It looks like the exact same train, but that tank car that he's hauling is now empty, coming back from whatever customer that he switched. Right on 719's markers coming up the hill was 0738, the local which we first caught this morning. He had finished up his work all out east and had picked up about 5,000 feet of empty rock from Davenport and 3 more covered hoppers from that industry that he was going to switch otherwise, and was now returning to Winston as well. Since there was nothing else running in the area at that time, we went to conclude our day at Winston by watching 0738 shove his train into the yard. The next weekend we wouldn't be around here, as we would be railfanning in Folkestone. That video has already gone up, you can check that one out if you haven't already, but we find our way back out to Central Florida on November 22nd. November 22nd now, another cloudy sky out on these familiar rails. Q452, a daily mixed freight out of Miami's Hialeah Yard to Rice Yard in Waycross, Georgia, was making his way around Winston as they were calling for a new crew, and it looks like they would be taking the Plant City side today, so we set up down at Clark Road just west of Winston at the South Winston Pass to catch them beginning their journey west. 452 was a big one this morning at 9,000 feet, though he was mostly auto racks today. We're seeing that with mostly peak season and the holidays approaching, the auto industry is at a peak right now. This train will continue west until they reach Plant City, to where they will take the connection to conjoin with the S line and continue north to Waycross from there via Baldwin and Folkestone. Max had come out to meet up with us again, and by this point in the day Amtrak was soon to arrive. Here was the southbound Silver Star number 91 coming past the cut crossing at Browning Road, which at the very end still has disconnected but still has code wires off to the right. Afterwards, we met up with a couple friends of mine, Danny and Hunter, and moved up to the old Lakeland Amtrak station again. Q453, the southbound sister of 452 we saw this morning, Waycross to Hialeah, was making his way south and was coming up upon us at Lakeland. He would be coming down the hill to Winston to work the yard, dropping off and picking up some cars. Right behind 453 today was 0738 again. This local, which had finished up his work east of here and was now returning with a fairly shorter train compared to last time, but another AC 4400 duo. There wasn't too much to see in Central Florida this day, so after 0738 went by, 91 was on his way back out of Tampa, but as for Central Florida, this would be our last train for today. Just like Q453 from a few minutes ago, this Amtrak is also headed to Miami. This would be our last train in Central Florida for today, but as I said a while ago, I don't turn off my radio until we pass all CSX territory on our way south, and it was again thanks to this that we were able to snag one more train. Just like the one we caught in the beginning of this video, we happened to hear coming into Palmetto 0750 on the Bradenton side of the river. He was getting permission from the dispatcher and the bridge tender to head back north from where he stood back to Tampa. I didn't know what his power was or what his consist was, but it was another train, so we decided to stop in and get it real quick. A quick stop in downtown Palmetto. The train's headlight came into view within a couple of minutes. He stopped the train about 500 yards south of us to flip the switch at 914.6 back to normal so they could continue back north, and pretty soon that was done. So in the last lights of this cool day, we caught 0750 coming back north with a very nice consist. To my surprise, two locomotives, 6509, a GP40-3, and 2549, a GP38-2, hauling 27 empty rock hoppers out of Palmetto headed back to Tampa. I had heard talk about this guy working customers earlier today, but I had never actually considered going for it until now. And now I'm especially glad that we made this stop. This would be all for today, and I'd be surprised if y'all are still watching this video after 27 minutes, but we had one more outing to complete the month of November. Keeping up with tradition, we went out to Railfan Central Florida for Black Friday, November 27th. Making it out there in the late morning of Friday, November 27th, our first train came back at South Lakeland, X453, an extra job of auto racks from Baldwin to Palm Center. This train ran undoubtedly due to peak season and auto sales being up right now. This train was departing Winston headed for Palm Center with 96 loaded auto racks and nothing else. They've ran this train one other time before to my knowledge this year, and I'm not sure if they're going to run this systematically throughout this peak season or not, but the two times they have run it, it seems to be an interesting service design to get auto racks from Baldwin to all three of Florida's major auto distribution centers, Tampa, Orlando, and Palm Center. This train carries traffic for all three of those, eventually terminating in Palm Center, which is where he is now headed. The train originates in Baldwin, swings into Winston to drop off Orlando and Tampa traffic, and now makes this journey to Palm Center. A couple hours go by and we catch Q452, the daily mixed freight out of Miami bound for Waycross, Georgia. We caught him at the very top of the hill at Lakeland Junction with the Crayola Heritage Unit leading, as we rail fans seem to call it. No, that's not Photoshop. That's a real locomotive that you can catch out there. CSX number 940 on the engineer's side only has some very odd branding logo on the side. Word is that at some point this locomotive had its side doors blown off to where they had to be replaced with some other old locomotive's doors. And they didn't paint the locomotive when they put these new doors on, so over time that became the resulting logo. This could have been work of a graffiti artist or the actual company. These days, you never truly know what happened there. All we rail fans know is that it looks like an elementary school teamed up with a box of crayons and drew that logo on the side, hence the name Crayola Heritage Unit. 452 is staying on track 1 as he creeps by Lakeland Junction. He would normally cross over to track 2, but they aren't doing that here. They're keeping him on track 1 as he's going to stop his train in about a mile up at 10th Street to meet a southbound opposing train. Though it would be another hour before that opposing train got there, so we moved up to 10th Street and waited there, since the sunlight would also be better. The opposing train in question was, once again, Q177, an almost 12-hour late intermodal out of Jacksonville headed to Winter Haven. This train running in daylight seems to be happening more and more often for some reason. Almost immediately after 177 clears the switch, and the switch aligns itself for 452's movement, the signal improves to an approach limited, which is telling the crew to take off, but approach the next signal not exceeding limited speed, which in the case of the railroad is 45 miles per hour. I'm sure you guys will recognize 0738's ID by this point in the video. He was making his way back to Winston now as well, so we moved over to the Lakeland connection to catch him making his return trip. But on duty this job was two EMD SD40 locomotives, one being a rebuilt Dash 3 variant, and the other being an original Dash 2 variant. He had made his way out to Davenport this morning, engines light, to pick up almost 5,000 feet of rock to bring back to Winston. Some is loaded, some is empty. After 7:38, it was pretty late in the afternoon, so we would part ways with Dalton and Max, go get some food, and make our way back to Plant City, where we would then meet up with Tommy and Damien to catch our three last trains, Amtrak 92 and CSX Q046 and Q442. And finally, after 37 minutes of this video and at the end of our day, we catch the very last train for tonight's outing and for November's Railfanning, Q442, nightly mixed freight commerce out of Tampa's Yeoman Yard bound for Waycross's Rice Yard. After making it through all this video that you probably skipped most of because of how long it was, we can officially say that November 2020 is over, and I can officially say that the railfanning and interactions with friends were spectacular. Huge thanks to Max and Dalton especially for making this month so memorable, and to everybody else that I met out there along the way. These long videos aren't the most practical, I know, but they're the easiest with my schedule sometimes and how congested it can be. But I appreciate you watching what you could or did of this video. And now, on to the final month of December. Thanks for watching once again. And in Plant City, Florida, this is Kotabeaner, and I'll see you out there next time on the Sunshine State Rails.